A lot of people seem to think that in order to find your purpose, you have to do a lot of soul searching, whatever that entails. But what if I told you I found a much more effective way to find my purpose? And all that it entailed was using this. So, being in my 30s, I sort of reached a crossroads where I asked myself, what is it that I actually want to do in life? I was working the same physical therapy job for the past couple years, and it just felt like my life was just sort of stuck on repeat, doing the same thing day in and day out. It was unfulfilling and honestly just left me feeling pretty down on myself. In order to fix this problem, I turned to the internet to try to find articles and books on how to find my purpose. And while I found a lot of resources that sort of helped, I felt like all they really did was make me feel good, and they didn't really bring me any closer to actually finding whatever purpose I was meant to do in life. You see, one of the main problems I had is I felt like there was just too many paths that I could take, and I didn't know which one was the right one. Should I pursue my music passion? Should I go back to college and get another degree? Should I do that tech boot camp? Or maybe I should open up my own physical therapy practice. It just felt like there was an endless amount of options. And with that, it felt like there was a lot of overwhelm on my part to try to pick the best one and a lot of pressure to do so as well. So weeks went by and I would weigh out the pros and cons of each of the paths. So one week I was like, oh yes, let's do music production. And then another week I was like, oh yes, tech bootcamp, that's the way to go. And so by doing these analyses, it felt like I was making progress because it seemed like I was narrowing down what path I wanted to take. But because I kept flip-flopping between all of the different options, it really was just wasting my time. It was then that I knew that something needed to change. So Einstein supposedly said that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, for me, weighing out the pros and cons of each of the paths that I could take in life was not getting me any closer to my goal. So I realized that I need to do something different if I'm going to gain some more clarity on this issue. So then I had this idea. And I'm like, well, why don't I just pick something and course correct as I go along? And at first the idea of that scared me a bit because it's like, well, what if I pick the wrong thing? Then I got to start all over. And then after thinking about it for a while, it actually makes a lot of sense because even if I picked the wrong thing, I'll still technically be closer to my goal because I'll know that that's not the right path. Versus if I don't pick anything at all, then I'm never making any progress. And so after coming to that realization, I decided to try this technique. So I decided to pick a path of trying to get into UX design by taking a UX bootcamp. And I thought it'd be neat to document my journey by sharing videos on YouTube. I found that a lot of people who posted on YouTube with regards to UX design only posted once they were successful in the field. And so I thought it would be neat to just share my story from the ground up. So I went along this path with trying to get into UX design, and I was making videos on YouTube documenting my journey with this whole thing. Well, as time went on, I realized that, UX design is actually not the move for me. I like aspects of UX design, but the main thing that I realized is I didn't want to find myself working another job. You see, I thought that the way to get out of an unfulfilling PT job was to get into a career in a different field. But really, I found out that I wanted to find a way to be able to sustain myself financially without having to work for someone else. And so this marked the first big course correction I had with finding my purpose. And along with that realization, I also discovered that I loved making YouTube videos. I've been making YouTube videos weekly without fail for the past 2 years. So for me, it makes sense that if I do something so consistently like making YouTube videos and I still continue to enjoy it, then it's likely to be a part of my purpose in some capacity. And so from then on, I've continued to make YouTube videos, sharing my journey with web design and becoming a creative solopreneur. Ideally, these videos will help you if you're kind of along a similar path to me and you want to kind of carve your own path and not have to work for someone else. And so these kinds of videos are what I continue to do to this day. So what I've learned is that finding a purpose is not about picking the right path. It's about picking a path, because once you pick a path, you will naturally course correct along the way. See, like, a purpose is not a static entity. It is something that evolves over time as you continue to take action and make decisions. I mean, if you would have asked me a year or two ago if I would have saw myself doing what I'm doing now, I'd say absolutely not. The guy who was like weighing out pros and cons of different paths that I could take, no, would have never guessed this. But that's sort of like the magic of taking action. And the problem is that it's really difficult to do, but it's so important to do. If we can just like get over the fact that our brains are perpetually trying to self-sabotage us, if we can just take action and course correct along the way, it helps so much more than trying to just analyze everything and think our way through things. But if you can get over that hurdle and pick a path, you will have probably taken the most important step towards finding your life's purpose. And if you're curious more about the path that I've decided to take in life, you can check out this video here. And until next time, I'll see you in the next video. Take care.